Hello. Hey, folks. I just wanted to give everyone the heads up. We are going to start in about 5 minutes, as well as if anybody has lost a bike valet, please go to registration after we have it for you. All right, thank you. See you in 5. Good to go? All right. Hello, folks. We are going to get started. All right. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Cameron Armstrong. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the regional organizer for Climate Reality Project Canada, as well as an organizer for the Consider Climate Manitoba campaign. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you all so much for taking the time here to join us tonight to discuss climate action as well as climate policy in Manitoba. It's really exciting to see so many Manitobans here who are also excited about climate action. Tonight, you'll hear from representatives from Manitoba's Liberal, PC, Green, NDP party, and NDP parties about their climate commitments. All the parties who had candidates running in over 50% of Manitoba's ridings in the last provincial election were invited to attend, and we're so thankful for all the parties represented here today. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we're currently on. We recognize that we are currently on Treaty 1 territory, the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. As we're speaking from a provincial context today, and we are joined by folks online virtually from across the province, I'd also like to acknowledge that along with Treaty 1, Manitoba is located on Treaty 2, 3, 4, 5, and the adhesion to Treaty 5. I encourage you all to start thinking about your personal relationships with the land. Where did your family come from? How did you end up here? What privileges or circumstances allowed you to be here today? What have you benefited from, lost, or gained? As we discuss moving forward to combat climate change and environmental degradation, it's critical for us to acknowledge and honor the stewardship and care for the lands and waters that has been led by Indigenous peoples on Turtle Island from time immemorial. Real climate action and environmental solutions can only occur through Indigenous partnership and collaboration, and with the recognition of Indigenous environmental leaders and their knowledge. As we are all sharing space tonight, I'd like to go over a quick few housekeeping rules. So, first, please try to minimize distractions as much as you can. Please take the time right now to silence your phones and any other mobile devices you may have with you. Applause only, please, tonight. When reacting to candidate statements, please refrain from anything other than applause. In other words, please no booing or heckling. We are also hoping to foster a safer space tonight where everyone is welcomed. There will be zero tolerance for those who promote violence against others on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious affiliation, or disability. Please no partisan statements. As this forum is showcasing many parties' platforms, please refrain from responding or making partisan statements in respect to all parties in attendance. And lastly, take space, but also make space. Share your perspective, but make space for other voices to be heard as well. Recognize that we are all here to learn tonight. Does that sound okay with everyone? Awesome. All right. Well, with that, I'm so incredibly honored to invite Grandma Shingoose up to bless our event tonight.
We're just lighting up a smudge and go ahead. Yeah. Oh yeah. There. Good. Okay. Yeah, just put them out. Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Geraldine Shingoose, and my spirit names are Sky Woman and Northern Lights Woman. I come from the Bear Clan, and my warrior spirit is Grandmother Turtle. So I lit a smudge because in our traditions, our way, we whenever we say have a talk with Creator and our ancestors, that smoke goes up to them. The golden eagle is the one that takes it up. So I have so much to share tonight. I was driving here and I was thinking about what I wanted to share. And before I say the prayer, I want to share a story. I grew up in the bush. We lived on the land. I lived with my mom and my dad and my kokum. We didn't have any running water or electricity or all those. We didn't have Wi-Fi. So we didn't have a cell phone. We didn't know what they were back then. So it was, my parents worked hard, and we worked hard too as children, you know, just hauling that water and just living on the land. And I remember my dad and my brother, like, you know, they would dig a hole like 6 feet under, or maybe even deeper, just so that they could, that's where we could keep our food that we wanted to keep cold. That was our refrigerator. And it was, but it was a joyous time. Like, you know, at night times we'd look at the stars and the moon and the sky and the northern lights and just be out there on the land. So today I attended a residential school conference at a national gathering for residential school survivors at the RBC. I'm a 9-year residential school survivor. So I was thinking about coming here tonight and how us survivors were taken and we were disconnected from our lands. Like, you know, all those teachings and, like, you know, as Indigenous people, we have a giving and receiving relationship with the land. Whatever we take, we give. So, and we only take what we need. And that's the way it's always been, like, you know, with our ancestors and with our people now. What I do now with the land is I pick the medicines, I pick the sage, and I grow tobacco, and I grow my garden, and I pick sweetgrass. And that's all you need, and you need water. Like, you know, just simple things like that. Nokomis is hurting. Mother Earth is hurting. You could see it. You could see her. What's happening worldwide? You know, the fires, the floods. People are being disconnected from their lands. We can no longer exploit Mother Earth, because if you continue to exploit Mother Earth and her resources, because you're not giving back to her. What are you doing? Like, you know, it just breaks my heart to see that. Like, you know, as a Anishinaabe Kwe, as an Indigenous woman. Because as Indigenous women, we have that connection to the land. When she hurts, we hurt. And you could see that with the MMIW. All our Indigenous women are being taken or murdered or missing. And when that's stopped, then Mother Earth will replenish. So we need to replenish her. We need to give her messages, daily messages. Whenever I pray to her, I always say thank you, my gratitude. That's all I have to say. I don't ask her for anything. So I just want to open this event, and I'm hoping that the leaders in this room think I had not just the 4 years or 8 years, wherever you're going to be in that role, but I think you need to think ahead for your future children, your great-grandchildren. Like, do you want Mother Earth still here for them? I do. So with that, I just want to offer a prayer, and I'm her voice, because she doesn't have a voice. So as a grandmother, as a chaplain, as a great-grandma, I have to speak for her. Bonjour, Kichimento, Kijikashkoya Danishnakas, Waiweta Kwai Makwanodam. I come in prayer tonight, Creator, grandfathers, grandmothers, Nukamas, and to my spirit helpers. I feel emotional right now because I feel her pain. I pray that people understand her, understand Nokomis and Mother Earth, and understand where she's coming from and what she wants. And I pray that she's given the messages that she's been asking for all along. I pray that our animals, the birds, the ones in the waters, I pray that they're protected by her because they're the ones that are also taking care of her. So I say Chimigwech to them. I say Chimigwech to our leaders here that are going to be presenting tonight, and the responsibility and the role that you're going to have is a big one. And so I pray that you're given that guidance and support that you need so that you could lead with heart and with spirit. I pray for the people that are here, the ones that are constantly and on the front lines, fighting for our lands, protecting the lands and the waters. I see you, and I know that you're out there, so I say Chimigwech to use. I say Chimigwech for these medicines that are here, and I ask that the young ones that are coming forward, that you're fierce and that you bring action to continue to protect the land, because we need you, and you're going to be doing that for the future, our great-grandchildren. So with that, I just want to close, and I want to say Chimigwech for inviting me here to speak, and it's always an honor, to stand with the allies, and you guys, I see you, so it's Chimigwech. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really beautiful and incredibly moving. It feels very special for you to join us today, so thank you so much. Next, I would like to introduce everyone to our moderator tonight, Richard Cloutier. Richard is the co-host of the news on 680 CJOB and a senior reporter for Global News. He has an incredible passion for storytelling, and I'm so excited for him to be joining us tonight. Thank you for being here, Richard, and with that, I'll pass it off to you.
Thank you so very much. Good evening, friends. How's everybody? Good. It's wonderful to see you, Grandma Shingus. Thank you so very much. And Cameron, thank you so very much for those very kind words. I'm going to ask you to applaud after I introduce all four here, because you know, come election time, and I've been moderating a few of these over the years, it's so very important that people step forward and be heard. I remember the very first environment forum I did 30 years ago. And environment at the time was kind of one of those things where the politicians had to do it, but they didn't want to necessarily do it. And I know some of the veterans in this room, and I recognize some of you from way back when I was a teenager. But the courage of your conviction, and I remember having the conversations, you know, 30 years ago, and being in a room like this where people would say, well, climate change, We've come a long ways in educating people outside this room. And each one of you are here because you care, and you're ambassadors into, I dare say, the most important issues facing us as humans, is whether or not we can get our stuff together. And it has to happen locally, provincially, nationally, and internationally. So I thank the four of you for being here, for trying to answer the questions, because it's tough. And I think hopefully in the next 90 minutes, we'll see that there are, some differences here. But I will not doubt, knowing all four here, some better than others, that they are all committed to do what's best for Manitobans. Sometimes others can do it better, but sometimes the whole conviction that each one has and the parties have is something that at times can be questioned. But I also think that most people I have dealt with when it comes to this issue are quite sincere about it. So I thank you, four of you, ahead of time. Dougald Lamont is here from the Liberals, Lisa Naylor from the NDP, Kevin Klein from the Progressive Conservatives, and Janine Gibson from the Green Party. We're not having introductory remarks, but you can certainly, as part of your answer to question number one, kind of use that as an opportunity to say good evening to everybody, because that's kind of what we do, right? So with that, we'll have 2 minutes. I will play Interrupt Duck at some point, where I'll say time. And then if I have to really interrupt you, you'll know. And the way we'll do this, we'll start at the end and then we'll kind of rotate. If there's an opportunity for some engagement, I like that too. I absolutely like that too, as long as we can agree to be respectful. And I think this audience knows the rules. So question number one, and we'll begin with you, candidate Naylor from the NDP. Across the globe and in this region, we are now experiencing the impacts of Earth's average temperature rising by almost 1.5 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial time. A rise in extreme weather events, environmental emergencies, such as what we have seen here, forest fires, droughts, floods, heat waves, result in increased adverse health outcomes and higher levels of infectious disease. What immediate actions will your government develop and implement to ensure climate mitigation and adaptation will be the priorities in all government policies if you are elected in October? Take 2 minutes.
Thank you, Richard.
There's a microphone there, right?
First, I had to be first.
Should be on.
Is it on? Okay, thank you. I am just going to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Lisa Naylor. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the MLA for Wolseley, and I served almost 4 years as the critic for environment and climate for the NDP. I also want to take a moment to say that, to send regrets on behalf of Wab Kinew. I know it was very important to him to participate in this forum, but elections have a lot of moving parts, and something made it impossible for him to be here tonight. So I'm very pleased and proud to be here to represent WAB and Manitoba NDP. And I want folks to know that climate issues and environment issues are so top of mind for us, such a critical part of our party's thinking and policies, that actually many of us in the party could speak with expertise on the policies that we are bringing forward. And I'm glad that WAB can count on us in that way, and I'm proud to represent him tonight. Climate change is the greatest challenge of our time. We see the consequences around us from floods and wildfires and droughts, and we have a responsibility to act to make life better for future generations, to protect our natural spaces, our wildlife, and our water. We will start with taking the climate crisis seriously, working with other levels of government instead of fighting them in court like the PCs have done. We will work towards the federal government's net zero target for 2050 with incremental goals and accountability. The creation of a renewable energy grid has been the single most important advancement in the fight against climate change in this province's history. But to her discredit, Heather Stephenson has fought against it every step of the way. We have a renewable energy grid despite the PCs. The PC government not only spent millions of dollars in court fighting the federal carbon tax, but Heather Stephenson has promised to do it again. They took federal dollars designated for carbon reduction programs and funded existing programs while cutting clean energy programs like Manitoba's solar rebate program. In addition to using our clean energy advantage at Manitoba Hydro to help grow our electric vehicle and EV infrastructure, an NDP government will use nature-based approaches to mitigate climate change. We've committed to protecting 30% of Manitoba by 2030, and this includes protecting wetlands, which play a vital role in preventing wildfires and flooding. In 2015, the NDP introduced a provincial act to regulate peatlands and banned peat harvesting in provincial parks. Peat is another critical element in mitigating climate change. We will also end the PC's deforestation, plant more trees, protect and invest in provincial parks, and grow our urban green spaces.
Thank you so very much. Let's go on now to Dougald Lamont.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm Dougald Lamont. I'm leader of the Manitoba Liberal Party, MLA for St. Boniface. In 2019, we put forward, I think it was a 26 or 28-page plan, especially for green growth and renewal. And I want to thank Grandma Shingoose for her opening prayer, and also the concept, the very important concept that we need to give back. I happened to meet with a few years ago Robert Falcon-Ouellette, who's running for us in Southdale this year, and I traveled to Brandon. We met with Frank Tacan Sr., I believe, who's an elder in Brandon, and he sat us down and he talked about this, and he said, look, you cannot keep taking without giving back. So that was a major focus for what we wanted to do, and we've expanded on our 2019 platform in a couple of ways. One is that we would run government on the campsite rule. The whole idea is you're supposed to leave it better than you found it. The other is that when it comes to giving back, I mean, one of the challenges that people have faced is that the carbon tax is really, it's all stick and no carrot, and we need some carrots to make this work. So we would create a $300 million fund. We would go to the federal government, we would take back and renegotiate, we would take back control over the carbon levy in Manitoba so we could run our own programs, so we could make our own changes, so we would get that revenue instead of it just coming back straight through checks as it is right now. We would create a $300 million green fund to be administered by Efficiency Manitoba. We would change Efficiency Manitoba's mandate to include climate change. The funding would come from the carbon levy as well as through Manitoba Hydro, and that would be used to fund projects across Manitoba, across a wide range of areas. So if you're a municipality, it could help pay for wetlands. If you want to create a wilderness corridor and rewilding, it will help pay for that. Basically, my joke is, I'm sort of the PCs, they're not always the greatest capitalists. They sometimes forget that you need capital to make things happen. And that's what we need. What has been missing to take us to the next level is funding, is it making it easier for everybody. So the idea behind this fund is to give everybody the opportunity to participate, and it's $300 million a year, every year, going up. So I mean, over the course of a four-year
Time.
mandate, that would be $1.2 billion. Thank
Mr.
you.
Lamont, thank you so very much. Janine Gibson with the Greens. Hi.
Thank you very much. Is this on? It is, okay. Merci pour votre invitation. I would like to say that the Manitoba Green Action Team Road to Resistance Plan is based on the similar principles we have with the Green Party, principles of health, ecology, fairness, and care that I have lived the previous 30 years of my life supporting in helping ecosystems adapt and change from industrial agriculture, supporting the organic and resilient agriculture sector. So in terms of the climate crisis, I have to say that what many of the sponsoring organizations here this evening have been working on are an excellent place to start and need more respect. The Road to Resilience Plan sets the clear climate goals and targets that we need in order to get to the 31% of the 2005 levels. And so we support that. We also believe we need to incorporate climate considerations into legislation, all legislation, that we need to ensure that we reduce energy costs in homes and public buildings. And these points that I'm listing are things that a Green MLA or that several Green MLAs will play a conscious role in our legislature to ensure that we are actually addressing these critical steps to addressing our climate emergency that's happening right now. We need to mainstream climate in policy development, integrate the climate assessments in the development of all policies, ensuring all development, Mr. Klein, that we appeal licenses that threaten our water in whatever way, and that we respect the fact that water is life and that we need to understand what impacts using resources have on our communities. The communities not only of people on the land, we are part of the biology, but all of the life, so that we make it easier for people to consult with one another, work with one another through funding green jobs to accurately assess, are we meeting our climate goals? What are the climate impact assessments that are working? Where are we still vulnerable? Where can we be more resilient? We need cross-determination, cross-departmental, climate
Time.
budgeting funding, many aspects we need to work as a conscience on. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. With us, our fourth candidate here from the Progressive Conservatives. Please welcome Kevin Klein.
Thank you very much, Richard. And before we start, feel free to call me Kevin anytime. And I think we should take a moment, and I'm sure my colleagues would like to as well, to send our sympathies to all those that were impacted and are being impacted by the devastating wildfires. We also have to extend our heartfelt appreciation to the courageous first responders who have exhibited unwavering commitment. I have a daughter and 3 grandchildren that live in BC that can see some of the fires from their porch, and I understand the fear that they have. As a city councillor, you know that I moved more motions to address climate change in the city of Winnipeg than any other councillor, and we're successful on many of them. It's one of the reasons I joined the Progressive Conservative Party. Climate action is not just an option, but an imperative that serves as a cornerstone of all policy decisions. We are already embarking on transformative journeys, directing substantial financial resources towards eco-friendly initiatives, with the current year seeing multi-million-dollar investments that both the NDP and Liberal voted against, such as the Conservation and Climate Fund, the Transportation Program, and the Water Strategy Action Plan, and that's just a few. Our allegiance to sustainable practices is unshakable. We recognize that climate mitigation is intrinsically, thank you, linked with our, I could spell it but can't say it, our duty to safeguard public health and counteract the surge of infectious diseases stemming from extreme climate events. Listen, our PC government is committed to safeguarding our environment. That's why I'm here. And we are ensuring our future prosperity are inseparable objectives. Again, while the NDP didn't meet any of their environmental targets in 17 years, we are achieving success. And you can rest assured that climate mitigation and adaptation are not hollow catchphrases or political promises. We stand by them as guiding beacons of our action, and we remain committed to immediate, tangible steps to pave the way forward for a more secure, healthier, and sustainable future for everyone.
All right, thank you. We're all kind of warmed up here. Before I get to question two, the whole idea of this question is, and I think you attacked it at the kind of the green mantra, is in government you have an entity that's called Treasury Board, and they're the ones that kind of handle the purse strings of government. Anything that is major goes through Treasury Board. And I'm just wondering, you know, is there anything in the NDP platform that looks at climate very much like Treasury Board, that everything has to be vetted through a climate template to see whether it is climate friendly or climate adverse? Because that's kind of the spirit and what the heart of question one is all about. What is in place beyond policy to make sure that climate is the consideration, that if there's something that goes against good, sound climate principles, that's something that, sorry, come back when it adheres to those principles. Is there anything in the NDP platform that addresses that? Take about 20 seconds.
I can speak to my experience of the last 4 years where we have used that lens, a climate lens, around every policy conversation, and I'm going to add to that. We use a racialized lens. We look at relationships, good relationships with Indigenous people, which is such an important part of this conversation.
And that's part of the platform that, if you are lucky enough to get government on the 3rd, so we're going to hear about that throughout the campaign?
We've already spoken about the relationships with Indigenous people when it comes to reaching the goal of 30% land protection. We cannot move forward.
I look forward to that structure in government. Douglas Lamont, same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things we said is to say that, to make it clear, all these decisions are made through a lens of climate change and what that impact is. And some of it is, and like, we haven't gotten to all of our policies, but you have to be making sure this is the most important thing. I mean, part of it is that I've been concerned about it for 30 years. There are articles going back 100 plus years talking about coal causing climate change, right? It's not a new thing. But yeah, absolutely. Yes, there need to be rules, or there needs to be a policy set from the top to say, look, this is going to be part of it. We've said it's in our platform that we look through these things through a lens of
I think it's already in your kind of mantra from the Greens, but take 20 seconds if you want to.
Since I read Rachel Carson's Silent Spring when I was 12. Since I read Rachel Carson's Silent Spring when I was 12, I have been working to try and make the polluters pay.
Oh, I got work for you. I've got a few stories. Kevin Klein, it's easier in opposition to do this, but once you get into government, there are certain realities. But what is the structure of government that really vets on that climate template?
My decision to join the Progressive Conservatives took that into account, and I'm happy to say that I am on the Treasury Board, and when we make decisions, we make a whole of a government decision. We look at it from every possible angle that impacts all of government. We look at water, we look at agriculture, we look at the environment, we look at our goals, we look at the objectives that we have in place. And that's why I'm there. I'm there to make sure that I'm asking those questions and that I'm holding our Treasury Board members accountable. But I can tell you, as a team member and new team member, we do consider a whole of government approach, including environment, to every decision we've made.
Okay. I'm going to come back to you on that when I ask you for some very specific examples. Hint, hint, silica. The climate crisis impact Manitoba farms. This is question 2 in food systems, and we'll begin with Douglas Lamont. But it's also a chance to restructure and reimagine how we farm and feed our province and the world. Over 40% of GHG emissions in Manitoba come from the food and farming sector, including agriculture, agricultural fuel use, and the manufacturing of agricultural inputs, which is a higher percentage than any other province or territory in Canada. What measures would your government implement to support farmers so we can increase our prairie biodiversity and meet our Paris Agreement obligations. Douglas Lamont, 2 minutes.
Yeah, we have to recognize how much agriculture matters. I just met with Keystone agriculture producers the other day, and as they reminded us, the only reason we eat is because of farmers. It's a necessity of life. It's still a very highly risky. So there are unique challenges, and we have to be working really closely with producers to make sure all those programs are working. It is why we proposed the $300 million green plan, because lots of places are in debt, but and farmers are struggling with debt. They don't necessarily have the funds to make this stuff happen. So part of it is to have rewilding programs, and we actually introduced legislation for for nature corridors, and the funds would be used to have producers, private landowners, RMs, First Nations, and parks all working together to be able to create these wildlife corridors. That's one of the things we would do. Compensating farmers through what's called ALICE, the Alternative Land Use Services Program. So you're basically saying, look, we will compensate you. It's the opposite of a carbon tax. We're giving you a carbon payment. We will actually, if you're going to build a carbon sink, if you're going to build wetlands, trees, we will actually compensate you for that to some degree. And the other issue, it's a really important technical one, but excess nitrous oxide, it's 320 times more powerful than CO2 as a greenhouse gas emission. If we can work with farmers to bring down that waste, we can reduce the impact of agriculture. It would be like taking every single truck and car off the road in Manitoba without taking every single truck and car off the road in Manitoba. So working with agriculture is absolutely key, because you're dealing with super high intensity greenhouse gases that need to be reduced.
Thank you so very much. Kennedy Gibson.
Simplot, the chemical fertilizer plant in Portage, produces the most greenhouse gas emissions of anything in Manitoba. We need to be helping our farmers get off their addiction to chemicals. All the extension support was withdrawn, and now it's through input suppliers. That needs to change. All of the supports that we would require for a local, organic, resilient agriculture needs to be put in place because of the great amount of reduction of greenhouse gas emissions that will happen with a more organic agriculture. The incentives for biodiversity, right now over 27 US states pay all or some of the certification to become certified organic. None of that happens here in Manitoba. We need conservation easements and land trusts. You know, if we would honor the treaties and support Indigenous communities in the way they have managed fairly major agricultural production for over 22,000 years without the damage we've created in the last 150. So more policy integration. We need to pay for the eco-services. I've been lobbying for years. Why are they paying taxes on marshland? This is why marshland is being drained for production in areas where it should not happen. So we need to pay to move away from the industrial agriculture that's destroying our water systems and our ecosystems. We need to ensure that our pollinators are protected, and there are many different areas that the pollinators are under attack. The whole respect for the biodiversity, which so clearly comes from organic agriculture, has not been funded adequately. There's so much funding needed in technical assistance and training. We need to be moving our agricultural equipment to electric power sources or alternative fuel power sources, and promoting the planting of trees and carbon farming practices.
Thank you so very much. Let's move on to Kevin Klein for the Progressive Conservatives.
First of all, a huge thank you to all farmers. I don't know when the last time is that you thanked a farmer, but I've been blessed to tour a number of farms in my role with the government, and I can tell you it's not an easy job. It's certainly a lot of tough work, but it is a necessary job, and we must be grateful for them. And I can also tell you our PC government is resolute in supporting our farmers and striving to enrich prairie biodiversity, all while remaining steadfast on our commitment to the tenets of the Paris Agreement. I got to correct a couple of things. Our government, our PC government, does fund farmers not to farm on wetlands. I'm not sure why My colleagues don't know that, but we provide funding through the Manitoba Habitat Heritage Corporation that is very, very engaged in that very process. We invest to help protect lands, and we are helping farmers with the payments on that. We are also, in our time, traveling around speaking to Manitobans that are creating innovative ways to address chemicals for fertilization. There's a small company in Morden. If you haven't seen them, please go online and check them out, called EnviroClean. They have developed a process where they take all organic waste, food, cardboard, paper, trees, branches, grass. They dump it into the machinery that they have designed, and in 24 hours, it produces 100% organic fertilizer for them, topsoil. And they can use that as opposed to using the other chemicals because they have all the ingredients. They've done this through their processing. How are we going to advance? Not by making promises, not by telling you we're going to spend millions and millions of dollars. It's by getting out of the legislative building and talking to the people that are making things happen. And there's a lot of them that are making things happen, and that is what our government does. We support the people of Manitoba, and we will support innovation in green technology.
Thank you. I love it when politicians start talking about organic fertilizer. Anyway.
I should have wore a Target.
That's okay. I was going to ask you if you've ever milked a cow.
I did.
Not in those shoes. Lisa Naylor for the NDP.
Thank you. And while you didn't ask, I have also milked a cow, and not in these shoes. I want to thank both Janine and Dugald for bringing forward some important elements on this conversation. And to be honest, I've learned a lot from Janine over the last few years around agriculture and organic farming when I was in the role of environment critic, so I'm grateful to her for that. I just want to add that, certainly the Manitoba NDP is committed to investing in regenerative agriculture to help farmers in the transition. But some of the challenges that farmers have faced the last 7 years have really gotten in the way of that ability to make that transition. They have to be supported in their work, and the PC government has hurt farmers. They've hurt the farming community, and there's no question about that. They have had to spend their energy fighting the government rather than fighting climate change. The government jacked up crown leases by 300% or more and only released their plans to do this after the 2019 election. They opened the market to out-of-province corporate renters and removed regulations, making it harder for Manitoba farmers who care about the environment to even compete. And they also shut down 21 Manitoba agriculture service locations around the province, which created a lot of additional challenges. So a lot of our time and opposition with the agriculture sector has just been trying to support them through some of these very difficult challenges that have been put in their way by the current government. If we can get past all of that, then it's an opportunity to help farmers take the next step to regenerative agriculture.
So if we can open up all the mics, I'll give you about 20 seconds each because you did bring some charges up, and I don't mind, Mr. Klein, that you can respond to that.
Again, call me Kevin. Listen, some of the charges are inaccurate. It's misinformation and it's kind of twisted. The reality is we are spending time with farmers on the farms. I have met with the CAP organization on a couple of occasions. We've met with all the farmers and we are getting work done and we are moving forward and building a pathway. What the NDP government did in 17 years? Nothing.
Janine Gibson.
You've been helping people farm the system, not actually build soil and feed people.
Dugald Lamont?
That's inaccurate.
Yeah, no, just on the charges of the Crown leases, we drove up the Crane River to meet with a whole bunch of Métis ranchers and other farmers who are facing the loss of decades and decades of being tenant farmers because of the changes, where the PC government just said, you guys aren't paying enough in rent on your land, we're gonna crank it up and you're all gonna lose your homes. And
Quick last word to Lisa Naylor, then we're gonna move on.
A lot of young farmers care about a just transition, but a lot of young farmers or people who want to farm can't even get in the game because of what the PC government has done.
Okay, so we're going to begin the next round here with Janine Gibson of the Green Party. And again, I don't mind, a little bit of rejoiners. Let's be constructive in this. And if you agree on things, great. If you don't, let's try to drill down a little bit more on why. Number 3, a just transition will move us out of a fossil fuel-based economy and in a way that leaves no one behind. In Manitoba, decent unionized jobs can be created, retrofitting buildings to net zero, in sustainable transportation, solar, and wind to get Manitoba off fossil fuels. Social procurement, community benefit agreements ensure that public spending eliminates barriers to employment and creates decent jobs. If elected, what would your government do to transition Manitoba to a green economy with sustainable, stable, and well-paying decent jobs?
There are trillions of dollars being invested, and we think Manitoba should open a green bonds fund where investors can put money towards helping jobs transition. We envision massive mobilization of jobs, creating jobs, tapping into paying people to say, how can they green up the job they're currently doing? How can we make massive shifts into funding the kind of healthy, environmentally sound energy efficiency programs? There could be way more geothermal. That creates tons of jobs, way more construction to the correct building codes, like a level 4, where we're actually ensuring that the retrofitting of buildings reduces energy consumption. We want to see massive public transportation expansion, electrical trains between provinces and between all cities. We could really be improving our efficiency of our electricity. We could really be supporting our farmers and doing way more carbon capture. Every farm I know needs more workers. There's massive training need to happen in how we produce food. As an organic inspector who works with inspectors around the world, that's where we're going to suffer first, is in the supply chain for food production. And every farm needs more workers. So we really need to improve our waste recycling. Yes, robotics would help that be more efficient, but massive jobs need to be in there so that we're actually able to reduce what we're taking from the earth in a negative way and reusing what we're taking from mining at this time. To retrofit so many of our resource extractions like logging, lumber, mining, massive jobs can be created. And we believe that we can successfully fund this mobilization to a just and green economy by ensuring that we respect the communities that are involved.
Thank you so very much. Go ahead.
Lots of ideas shared, no substance on how to get it done. The potash mines, for example, are fully electric. Again, this was done under the PC Manitoba government. I want to acknowledge that we have to work with innovators. Government cannot fix this problem alone, and none of us up here should be saying we can. We have to work with the innovators, young entrepreneurs, business leaders in our province who are green, innovative leaders already. Leaders like the company I talked about, EnviroClean. Let's look at what the city of Selkirk has done with their new water treatment plant and now a hydrogen plant next door to it that will be buying the treated water from Selkirk. That's the circular economy that's creating more and more jobs. Let's look at Gardwine Transportation, who invested in the first fully electric transport truck in Western Canada, and an electrical fleet for deliveries within the city, and they're also trying to get them up to Thompson and other areas. We need to support them. What does the NDP want to do? Get rid of the gas tax, $4,000 for an EV vehicle. $4,000 when you're buying a F-150 Lightning, which is over $120,000, is not going to help that person make the decision. We have to invest in transit, and as a city councillor that fought hard to make sure that our transit buses were converted to electric, or now we can convert them to hydrogen. We are doing that work. We have a city task force that I started that is doing that work. We need to invest money, not give $4,000 or take gas tax off the gas. We have to invest those dollars into more bike paths, into an efficient transit system. It has to be efficient for people to use it. Our PC government's allegiance to sustainable practices is unshakable, and we recognize the importance of the green economy, and we are making Manitoba the leader in Canada in the green economy.
Lisa Naylor.
Thank you.
Respect everyone. We kind of took that pledge, right? Lisa Naylor.
Folks, the NDP cares about workers and creating local jobs. And while the PCs have tried to eliminate Manitoba jobs by bringing in P3 projects, such as their attempt for the North End water treatment plant, the NDP will always stand up for working people. Manitoba can have it both. We can have well-paying jobs that also support the provincial transition to a healthier climate. I can't give away all the details yet, but please watch for an exciting NDP commitment coming forward about geothermal heating. Not only will this make a big impact on reducing GHG emissions, but it will create thousands of new Manitoba jobs and save homeowners money. New Flyer is another great employer here in Winnipeg who manufactures electric and hydrogen buses, but unfortunately the PCs have not invested, and the Manitoba NDP will be different. We will invest in electric manufacturing, creating more jobs in Manitoba and clean energy transportation. Our party works to bring together Indigenous, rural, urban, northern, farmers, the labor movement, and other working people. And any party can have all the great policy ideas in the world, but if we can't bring people together, then nothing's going to get done. We will work towards the federal government's net zero target for 2050, and we will make Manitoba a climate leader and a desirable location for new businesses and green industry.
Thank you. Douglas Lamont.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. Look, to address Mr. Klein's comment, the idea that we have to work with the private sector, one of the biggest problems is that for 30 years, everyone has been saying we need to leave this to the private sector to fix. We need to let the market fix it, let the market fix it. And the market doesn't want to fix it because it's run by oil companies, right? And I'm sorry. Right now, the PCs are running against, they pretend that my party doesn't exist, and they pretend that Justin Trudeau is the leader of my party. And they're running against the carbon tax. Why is that? They can't make any difference about it. And the PCs and the NDP have announced a massive gas tax, which is just, it's a fiscal disaster and it's an environmental catastrophe. You're literally spending money to keep the same things going. It doesn't make any sense at all. So, and I will say one thing, which, like the NDP, they didn't do anything for 17 years. And this is a quote from somebody in the paper, in the Free Press. Bluntly, the Pallister-Stephenson governments have done less to mitigate the devastating impacts of future generations of changing climate than any other government in Canada, Alberta included. So, what I will say, we'll go back to the $300 million annual green fund, which it is designed to do exactly that. It's not just about jobs, it's also about capital so that farmers and businesses can make those changes. We can do deep energy retrofits. The other is a Manitoba Business Development Bank, which is a politically independent bank, so we're not handing out free money and grants to people or tax breaks and corporate welfare. We want to take that down. We want an independent Manitoba Business Development Bank that provides equity to people who want to start businesses and farmers. So it's just farmers, it's just business. If you want to start a business, if you want to start a regenerative farm, we would be there for you. That's our principle.
Thank you. This segues into kind of the next question here rather well, and then I'll take some time because you folks hired one of the more internationally prestigious companies in Dunsky to do what I thought was a very good look, and what I saw from Manitoba Hydro was quite different from Dunsky, and I hope your government will release the entire Dunsky report because there are many volumes to it as opposed to the 30 pages online. Energy and generation and use will play an important role in Manitoba's transition to a more sustainable future. The energy roadmap released by the government of Manitoba provides a pathway for change to regulation of energy in our province. What is your future vision of energy governance in Manitoba? How would you meet the electrification of our economy that is required to meet Canada's goal of a net zero electricity grid of 2035? And I would add to that is, why don't we have an energy policy, an overarching plan in Manitoba, and why do we just leave it to Manitoba Hydro to do it? We'll begin with you, Mr. Klein.
I believe what Hydro put out and what the announcement did talk about putting together an energy plan. And I think from the announcements we all can tell that RPC government is committed to the creation of a well-compensated, respectable employment. By leading the charge in initiatives like retrofitting buildings to attain net zero energy consumption and investing in sustainable modes of transportation, such as solar and wind power solutions for energy as well, we are working to lay the groundwork for an empowered and stable workforce. When you look at the energy report that came out, we've made it very clear